Safety has always been an issue for the students that live on campus at Missouri Western State University. Today we are going to talk with Housing Director Nathan Roberts and keep you abreast on what's going on with all the new and latest developments to keep our students safe. I'm Kimberly Warren. Hang on to your seat. You're in for a treat. You are watching Joy in Our Town. Nathan Roberts, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. Well, we're going to talk about campus safety today, and we have been very blessed and fortunate here in our city that we haven't had any major crimes that we've seen sweeping the nation and other college campuses. So let's talk first of all about what is your role as the Director of Residential Life for Missouri Western?
Sure. Well, I supervise our student population on campus, and I supervise.
Which is how many?
We're sitting at around 1,200 right now.
Wow.
So, yeah, we have a capacity of around 1,340, and it fluctuates throughout the year, but we opened with a record number of students this last fall. So supervise my residence hall directors who manage the buildings, and we have a population of about 40 RAs, and those are the students that help mentor those incoming students and help them on the right path to a good academic success. But then I'm also a liaison between the other departments on campus, so facilities and our programmatic units and dining, and try to set up my staff for success to manage those populations.
That is wonderful. I was an RA a few years ago, and I think that really helped me become a leader because you have to manage your peers and kind of set your parameters and guidelines. How do you train your RAs in order to enforce the rules and govern themselves accordingly?
The student staff RA position is one of the most trained positions that you have on a college campus, and residential life is one of those positions where you train every year. So every single year, new people, returners, we all go through about a 2-week training where you talk about policy enforcement, talk about programming, talk about how to create those communities on campus, because if students don't make a connection within the first 6 weeks or so, they're very, very unlikely to stay at the university or be successful academically. So it's a very extensive training, morning to evening, and in-hall training that they do, and prepping the buildings to get ready for those students to come in. So, but it's good to have those refreshers each year, even though you might have been an RA for a couple of years, going through and training again. But I don't know any other job that goes through and trains for your job every single year.
As the students leave their parents' homes, and many of them have said to their parents, I can't wait till I get out of here so I can make my own decisions. Are some of those students surprised that there's still a set of rules and regulations that you want them to respect?
Absolutely, and I think you see that in the first probably 3 or 4 weeks where they're testing their boundaries. Do you really mean it when you say that this, I can't be loud after 10 o'clock? Do you really mean it that I can't have alcohol on campus? Those kinds of things, and our staff is good at correcting that behavior and pulling them in and having a conversation about why it's not okay on campus. And there's some things that are pretty cut and dry. If you're not 21, alcohol is not allowed for you, but noise and having too many guests over in a room that might be disruptive to your roommates, those kinds of things. I think they think that they're going to be able to do whatever they want, and they don't conceptualize that there's other people around them that are also wanting to do what they want, and sometimes that's study and sometimes that's sleep. So yeah, I think it's a shock for them that it's not going to be Animal House like they think it's going to be. Right.
Now, even though it's not Animal House, you do have a lot of dry parties. You have a lot of I love the mud volleyball that we used to do. You have basketball tournaments, ice cream socials. So how do you teach them to have fun but respect the rules at the same time? Because you do want them to have a balance.
That is a challenge, and I think that's where the mentoring aspect of students that have been on campus for a while can take a role in that, as well as our staff. Structuring that programmatic activity and the fun activities, and then making sure you cut it off by the time quiet hours hits, and we clean up our messes, and we go back to study like we're here for. So I think mentoring is the way to go with that, because if they don't see it in action, it's hard to mimic that.
Why are you a proponent of living on campus opposed to having a kid at 17 and 18 moving from the parents' house, getting an apartment with a group of friends who are going to study, of course?
Of course, they're going to study, absolutely. Right. The living on campus aspect is a great transitional element to your growing up. And I think it's not just Missouri Western that does that. It's universities all over the nation have determined that that first year is really critical to establish your patterns of good academics. You learn who your professors are, figure out what direction you're going to go. But it's also, as I mentioned earlier, testing those boundaries. And I think in an environment where other students have already gone through that, and again, I mentioned the mentoring aspect and, us teaching them how to be a college student, because that's what student affairs really is. The classroom is how to be a biologist, how to be a mathematician. Student affairs is how to be a college student, how to be an adult, and how to work with other people, because you're going to do that for the rest of your life.
So do you believe, although we haven't had a lot of major crimes publicized here on our campus, do you think there's still a false sense of security with some of the students that may leave their doors open or their laptops and their wallets out and just hanging out, having a good old time after class?
Absolutely. And, I think some of that's our fault, because campuses are safe. We do keep them safe.
It's like a big family, huh?
It's a big family, and that's what we want the students on the floor to be. That's what I had when I was in college. I knew all 30 people on my floor. We would sit on and watch TV on Sunday night and wait for everybody to come home and, hey, how was your weekend? And that's what you want, but that also breeds some complacency in locking your door. When you're at the library, you've got your books laid out, you've got your laptop, and then maybe you're just going to run and grab a snack at the vending machine so you don't put all your stuff away, and when you come back, your laptop's gone, because most crimes are crimes of opportunity like that. So I think it does breed a complacency, because it is a really very safe place and safer than the surrounding areas.
Let's talk about the behind-the-scenes stuff. All campus crimes are not widely publicized, but if you were sending a young lady off to school, what would be some of the safety tips that you would share with her to prepare her?
Sure. I think it's really vital that you develop a core group of friends, and that friends look out for each other. You can't always be looking in all directions, and so if you're with a group of friends when you're going to the library, when you're going to the cafeteria, whenever you're doing those kinds of things, have somebody else that's looking out for you, and you look out for them. But then just being aware of your surroundings. I think a lot of students, you see them walking through campus, they've got a hooded sweatshirt on because it's chilly that day, they've got headphones in. They have no situational awareness of what's going on around them, and that may be okay at 3 o'clock in the afternoon with 1,000 other people walking around. But developing those habits on a college campus, you can maybe carry those to someplace off campus where it isn't as safe. So, being aware of your surroundings, knowing where to go, and it's not just crime kind of safety. We have tornadoes, we have floods, we have thunderstorms. So knowing what to do in all those kinds of emergency situations are really important. And like you mentioned, thankfully we haven't really had any big issues here. But doing a drill for an active shooter situation so that everybody knows what they're supposed to do and how to protect themselves. Those things are really important, and we do programming for that, and the University Police does programming. We also have a campus safety officer who schedules those kinds of trainings, but making sure that we're really impressing upon the students that's super important. So those are just a couple little things that you can do and that anybody can do on a college campus.
Would you give the same advice to a man?
Absolutely.
A young man, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, if you're just now tuning in, our special guest is Nathan Roberts, and he is the Director of Residential Life for Missouri Western State University here. And you thought it was difficult raising your 2 or 3 kids? Well, he has 1,300 youth that are transitioning from their teenage years into their adult years. And he talks about how he keeps the campus safe and makes sure it's a great experience for all students. If you would like to call and ask him about the programs and the intervention and the proactive training that they do on campus, or maybe your student is interested in being an RA or house resident, we want you to give them a call at 383-7100. That's 816-383-7100. They also have a website. Just go to missouriwestern.edu and then click on Residential Life. I said RA or HR. Do you still have house residents and have that designation?
We don't.
I kind of dated myself, didn't I?
No house mothers, no house residents. Yeah, that's
Right.
Resident assistant, hall directors, and assistant directors. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about a little bit more of a controversial issue. We had some students' cars that were vandalized over break, and we saw articles, across the media that talked about the hate crime and the cars that were vandalized, and then it kind of faded away. And I would like for people to know what you all have done behind the scenes so we can be able to resolve conflict on campus.
Sure. With any situation like that, of course, we take it very seriously. seriously, whether it's one person or multiple individuals in that case that had their cars vandalized might be a little strong because it was shoe polish on the windows, and I think the material was more what was inappropriate than the damage itself. But those things are hurtful to people, and we want to take that seriously and make sure that that isn't the kind of behavior that we tolerate on campus. So an incident such as that is documented both on the Res Life side and the university police side, and then something that is a violation of the Code of Student Conduct would be investigated at that level by our associate vice president and university police in tandem, and oftentimes they find who is responsible for that, and they sit down and have a conversation with them about the appropriateness of their actions, and depending on the severity of the situation, they may be asked not to be at school anymore, or it might be something that they understand that they can make restitution and make it right with the individuals. So
it may help for our viewers to know that you did apprehend those individuals that were involved in that situation. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, I believe they're found. Yes, they found out who they were and have been chatting with them. So
wonderful. If a student is caught violating a crime, what is the process, and do you involve the judicial authorities, the St. Joseph law enforcement, and what's the process for that?
That really depends on the severity of the situation, and most situations on a college campus don't involve law enforcement. They're violations of policy, whether they be housing or the Code of Student Conduct on a university campus, and so I would say 90% of the cases or more, they're formal conversations with an administrator about those actions, and then some sort of educational sanction is involved. We try not to make things punitive. We are an educational institution, and so educating students on their behavior, in addition to 2 + 2 = 4, is really part of the mission of the university. So making the education fit what the violation was, and making sure that it doesn't happen again, because that's really what you want. You want someone to learn, you want someone to understand why their behavior was inappropriate, and then move on.
Wonderful. What is helicopter parenting in closing?
Helicopter parenting. So that is as a parent that is very, very involved in their students' lives. When I was growing up, my parents dropped me off at school, and I had a duffel bag and a stereo, and we called it good. But often now students are very connected with their parents. They talk to them multiple times a day, text them. I'm dating myself, but I did not have a cell phone when I first started college, and often didn't have a phone in my room, so I don't think the internet was invented either. So students are very connected to their parents, and they are involved in every aspect of their lives. So it's an over-involvement where they will call on behalf of the student and advocate either for them or try to solve problems, whether it's a maintenance concern, whether it's a roommate concern, and try to take care of that situation for them. So all those parents out there, not necessarily doing your son or daughter a favor by trying to take care of that situation, because part of what we try to do is to help them learn how to solve problems.
So you try to decrease the helicopter parenting and let their kid experience life on their own, and wise decision making when appropriate.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, Nathan, we want to thank you for being here and all you're doing to keep the campus safe, and to help push the kids into their adulthood. And so we want to have you come back one time and talk a little bit more about mud volleyball, and also some of the proactive programs that you provide on campus to make sure the kids are safe and developing as they need to be.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Come back again.
Thank you.
We want to thank each of you for watching Joy in Our Town. I'm Kimberly Warren. Have a wonderful week.